Hello. Hi guys, how are you? Awesome. Thank you. So can you hear me okay? Is this good? Yeah. Okay. These mics can be a little finicky. You gotta keep them like right here. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. We really do appreciate the support. I think this is going to be a very interesting session. We've got a lot of information. Lily has done an amazing job putting together a presentation for you guys. Very thorough. Very, very thorough. And if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I've got a microphone right here, and I will give you the microphone because we have viewers on Facebook. And so in order for them to hear the question, we got to use the microphone. Okay? All right. Any questions, anything before we get started? All right, I'm going to hand it over to our star of the show, Dr. Lily Topper.
Thank you everyone so much for coming out here tonight to learn more about what will be on the ballot. I think it's pretty awesome that you're here. It's a first step towards voting in an educated way. That's something to be proud of. So thank you for being here. Just logistically, I would say if at any point you cannot hear me, let me know. Louder. See, there we go. This is good. So I already know to go louder. How's this? How do we feel about this type of volume? Okay, terrific. I'm going to use my outdoor voice inside. It's going to be great. So the other thing I'll say is that all of the information I'm presenting tonight, I found using a variety of types of sources. Some candidates and some information about what's on the ballot can be found online. Some candidates have campaign websites where they introduce themselves, they share a bit about their policy positions, their values. Some candidates don't have any information online. And I'll kind of tell you when there were points in which I could find information or I couldn't find information about different candidates. Also, there were a variety of local news sources that I consulted to try to get a sense of where people stand on various issues that might be of interest to everyone. I tried to break it down in a few different ways. I thought we'll start with some information about local things, Laramie County. Then we'll look at some of the national races. Then we're going to bounce back down to the state level. And in terms of the House and Senate districts in the state legislature, I'm focusing on the Laramie County districts. However, as we go, I'll show you some tools you can use if you're curious to learn more about races in other parts of the state too. So I guess my goal tonight is to share information, but also to show you all some cool tools that I found along the way that you could use too if you like to find your own information. And I really want this to be a session that works for all of you. You feel like you got your questions answered, you come out of this feeling strong and confident. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. I will try to check in every once in a while. I don't want to bombard you all with a bunch of information, have it be a monologue. So please don't hesitate to ask questions, or if you need anything, let me know. So just a reminder, a good place to start is the date. So the primaries will be August 18th. We still have a little bit under 2 weeks to learn everything we need to know about the candidates, about what's on the ballot, and to learn about the system itself. So Wyoming uses a closed primary system. So a closed primary system is a system in which voters have to be registered with a political party before they can even vote in that party's elections. So if you have voted previously in Wyoming, there was a deadline in May that you had to have changed your party registration by that date. That was May 13th. Now, there are a few other factors at play though. If you never voted in Wyoming, never registered to vote, you can still register with the party up until and on the day of the primary. The other factor to consider, in 2024, they were doing a bit of a purge of the voter enrollment records. So if you did not vote in 2024, but you were previously registered to vote in Wyoming, you might want to check in with your county clerk. If it's in Laramie County, it'll be the Laramie County Clerk's office.
good idea to check in to make sure you're still on the rolls. And if you're not, you can re-register. But again, that's if you did not vote in 2024. They did a kind of large-scale purge of people from those rolls. Now, something that's really interesting that Wyoming offers is absentee voting or vote by mail, voting from home. You can contact your county clerk's office, and you should probably do it immediately. The Laramie County Clerk's Office, they will accept these requests basically anyway, by phone, by email. You can go in person. They even have all the information on their website about what specific info they'll need from you in the email or with a phone call. So you'll have to share your name, your date of birth, your residence, mailing address, the political party with which you're registered, and the elections that you want these ballots for. The primary, the general, both, all of them, and contact information. So if you were already registered to vote by mail with absentee ballots, those were already sent out in July. So you should have received that by now. Again, if you haven't, check in with the Laramie County Clerk. There could have been an error or something, but always good to check in if things don't arrive in a timely way. So early voting is also an option in Wyoming. Early voting began July 21st and it ends August 17th in the atrium of the Laramie County Government Complex. The hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, except for any of the county holidays. Now, if you are voting in the primary on August 18th, you will receive one of 3 different types of ballots. These are the 3 options of ballots you will receive. Either one for the Republican Party, one for the Democratic Party, or one for the nonpartisan ballot. So if you're not registered with a political party, or if you're registered with one of the smaller third parties, like the Libertarian Party, the Constitution Party, you will get a nonpartisan ballot. But this year, there's still lots of things that people can do to participate with the nonpartisan ballots. So a lot of what we discussed tonight are candidates who are showing up on the partisan ballots. They're either candidates from the Republican Party, candidates from the Democratic Party, but everyone who receives any of the 3 types of ballots is going to see the 6-penny tax questions come up on their ballot, no matter what kind of ballot you're getting. Now, I volunteer to the Laramie County Clerk's website on the 6-penny tax. This is a pretty interesting way of levying taxes. So, in the state of Wyoming, there's a 4% sales tax, no matter where you are, no matter which county you're in. And then on top of that, counties can add sales tax in addition, in percentage points. So the 6-penny tax is really a temporary tax. The idea is that the county government is trying to raise money for specific projects. And those projects, if you scroll down on the Laramie County Clerk's website, you can see them categorized by what type of project they are. And if you hit this plus sign here, it will show you the very specific things that each municipality or that the county government is asking for. And essentially, you'll be voting for each of the different propositions, yes or no. And yes funds all the projects in that category, and no says I don't want them to fund any of the projects in that category. So it's kind of a blanket yes or a blanket no for each proposition. And this year there are quite a lot of propositions to consider. So if you scroll down, it's like 14 there. So it's always wise, I think, if you have the time to look at all the propositions before you even, start the process.
Did you say there were 14?
Yes, I believe there are. Let me fact check myself. Yes, there are 14. Great question.
Well, where do you get information about each one of them?
Excellent question. The question was, where do you get information about each of the 14 propositions? Thank you for asking that. clerk's website, they have a section dedicated to the 6 penny. So when you first click on it, this is what you see. But remember to scroll down. And then, when you see a specific proposition, hit this plus sign. And it's a lot of scrolling down. That's a theme of the night, right? Scrolling down, sorry everyone. If I go too quickly, let me know. We don't want to be on a roller coaster with all the scrolling. But what they're trying to show us are the specific values and amounts that they're trying to raise through the 6 penny tax for different municipalities. And what they used to do, is a bit of a fun factor, maybe a boring fact, depending on the situation. They used to group it by category, but they broke it up by municipality. So what would happen is, there's more voters in Cheyenne than in Alden and Burns and Pine Bluffs. The Cheyenne projects would get funded, but the smaller municipalities wouldn't. So they've changed the structure and the way they've done it. So now we're kind of voting for either all the projects or none of them. And yeah, so you can kind of look through, get a quick description of each project. I saw your hand up.
This is the way, is it not, that they sneak some things in because people do not go through and check every one of those.
That is a great question. Okay, so I'll kind of paraphrase your question. Sorry, I don't know if this is working. Okay, so we had an excellent question. Could this be a way that things are kind of stuck through because people aren't looking at all of them? I think that's a great question. And again, it's so great that you're all here tonight and the people online too, because you can really read through all of these and see what you think. And if you feel like, yes, this is a project that should be funded, you can vote yes. But if you have any hesitations, you can vote no. Great question. Yeah.
So, I would like to, I don't know if that works enough, right? So I just
Hello. So I would like to know, because I also think there's things in there that I would vote no on. So who decides how it goes together? Who puts those in each, because there's a Greenway here, Greenway maintenance. There's another one that has Greenway on it also for all of these Pine Bluffs and then Bluffs, all those things. So who is the group of people or the person that is doing that?
Excellent question. Oh, thank you. Excellent question. It's the county commissioners. So the way that this process. Yeah, they are also up for some of the re-election or election. They are on the ballot this time around as well. So it's the county commissioners who put forth, the way that this looks in the final draft. They do this in consultation with the municipalities. So like each of the municipalities, Cheyenne, Pine Bluffs, Alden, they will come to the Laramie County Commissioners and say kind of like presenting a plan. This is what we need, this is what we need funded, or this is what we want funded, and here's how we got to our numbers, so that they know they're not just. And then there's maybe a discussion that happens. There's also supposed to be some public consultation, and then they end up on the ballot. This is kind of like the final draft. Yeah, but that's a great question. Yes. And I'm so glad you asked that too, because I think it's worth, I don't want to be repeating myself in a knowing way, but I think it's worth repeating because it can be confusing. Each of these 14 propositions, you only get to vote yes on all of them or no on all of them. Yeah, so I would say definitely be sure about what you want to do, because that can feel confusing, I think. Yeah.
So how many other after F? What are all of them?
Oh, great question.
It's all a package, I assume?
Yes, it's a package. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to feed each proposition in different categories: infrastructure, community enhancement. So it's almost like, I guess the way I think about this is almost like a chapter of of a book, right? They're trying to give us a clue about what's going to happen and what we're going to read, but getting into the details can be tricky. And I think as people brought up, it's a great point. There's a lot of different things in each proposition. Yeah, really, really crucial thing to consider. Oh, the other thing I wanted to share with all of you before I forget, if you have any more specific questions about any of these propositions, how they got to those numbers, or what the plan is, or any of the specifics, you can always reach out to the county commissioners or the people who represent you in local government. So if you're in the city of Cheyenne, it would be the Cheyenne City Councilors. If you're in Pine Bluffs, the Pine Bluffs Town Councilors. So let's take a look at some of these other propositions. This is the first one, categorized as infrastructure. Then we have the next the next five also categorized as infrastructure. Then we have some categorized as public safety, and the last categories are community enhancements. So we can take a look at any or all of these. Now, the way that this tax works is that the county commissioners are trying to come up with a projected amount of money that they'll collect over a 5-year period. And they base that on the current average projections that they currently collect. So what they're essentially trying to do here is predict for all of us how long it would take to raise money for this fund, these projects, using that extra 1% tax. But then the tax expires once they've collected the money. And their kind of pitch to the voters is, we think that will be about 5 years. But of course, as with anything in life, things can fluctuate, so it could be a bit less than that, it could be a bit more than that, but that is their estimate or projection. So, yes. Are there any specific propositions people would want to look at to pull up here?
I would encourage anyone to attend the county commissioner, their group when they talk, because I don't know that I didn't realize until I did go to them that they actually are the ones who handle our tax dollars for all of this stuff.
That is such a great point, yeah. They meet at 3:30, I want to say Tuesdays. I will double check that though. But yeah, that's a great idea. Attending those meetings can be so eye-opening, so fascinating. And the 5 people who are the county commissioners for Laramie County, they are, public servants representing everyone in the county, right? So you have every right to ask them questions, to get clarification, and they're all pretty approachable, or at least they hopefully they'll be approachable. Maybe I should have mentioned promises. But yeah, that is, just to keep in mind, that is their job. They're representing all of you. They are representing, they're allocating funding. So yeah, don't ever hesitate to ask them questions. It's definitely a great idea. Thank you.
Could you go down a bit on that Proposition 10? Okay, hold it. It says to collect a total of 7 million, whatever, and interest earned thereon. So does this money, do these tax dollars or sales tax go into one account and then interest is earned on it?
Yes. I believe that is how it works. I wish I had a more specific answer for you though. I'm so sorry. I think it's one account, but I don't know for sure.
So is the interest in this whole big account that holds the sales tax revenue, is the interest prorated to each project?
Oh, that is an excellent question. You know what? I don't know. I wish I knew. These are such good questions.
Guess I'll go ask the commissioners.
Yeah.
You were here last week.
Yeah. If you want to, later, give me an email. I would be happy to try to research some of these more excellent and specific questions, and I could try to follow up with you if that would be of There are a lot of different projects, a lot of six-study projects. Definitely a lot to read through. Public safety, community enhancements, yeah. Yeah, sometimes I think even just seeing what they're looking for is, can be useful. Keep going down too, you can see why this.
Which category is the library? Aren't they asking for some?
This one says
We
library.
have two. We have two, 3 and 13. So you may have seen the signs around town. Yeah.
Here's a lot of them.
He asked for $7 million. So this-
If there are any that people would like to look at, let me know.
Hey, Whitney, for the people online, will you read off some of the projects, just so they know?
Definitely, yes. Okay, so there are, for people online, there are 14 different propositions, and each proposition contains multiple projects from the county and from different municipalities. This one is Proposition 14 that's up here on the screen. The goal for this proposition is to collect a total of $8,454,160 in interest earned thereon for the following projects for Laramie County, the Laramie County Senior Center, City of Cheyenne, and Town of Pine Bluffs. So Part A under this proposition is the Laramie County Events Department, the Small Animal Barn and Exhibition Hall, $5,238,000. They give a bit of a quick description of what that would look like, construction of a new small animal barn and exhibition hall at the Archer Complex to support youth programming, agricultural education, fair events, and expanded community exhibition capacity. Then under that, we have Part B, which is the Laramie County Senior Center, a transportation bus for $141,160. The idea here is to purchase a new transportation bus to safely serve senior residents, improve mobility access, and support expanded programming and healthcare-related transportation needs. Now, under the same category, we have the City of Cheyenne's Greenway New Construction and Rehabilitation Project at $3 million. Purpose of leveraging the funds with other funding sources to support new greenway construction and major rehabilitation projects, including the Yellowstone Road underpass rehabilitation, Parsley Boulevard extension, and the Cribbing section. And last but not least is the Town of Pine Bluff Cemetery, GIS mapping and upgrades for $75,000, comprehensive surveying of cemetery plots, GIS digital mapping, electronic record conversion, and general site upgrades to improve record accuracy and long-term management efficiency. So this is just one of the 14, but each one contains so many different projects. And, reading through them can be daunting and exhausting, but it's always worthwhile, I think, because then you see the details of what that money would go towards. And if it's not funded, what might not be funded too. I guess that's the other side.
So my question is, when it gets voted in, do they have to wait till all the money's in the account before these projects can start? Or how do they go, oh, A gets their money, but C doesn't till this point, or how do they select that?
Oh, that's a great question. I believe that they do start funding the projects as they collect the revenue that's been generated from the tax. I'm not sure how they prioritize that, or if they're all getting, money at the same time. That's such an excellent question.
So sorry, I don't have a great answer, but again, I can follow up with you, I can try to find you a good answer, so if anyone's interested in that, just let me know at the end. Give me your email, I'll try to find you a good answer and send it your way. Excellent question.
My understanding is it has to be collected first. Yeah, and so, yeah, they have to have the money before they can start the project. And then I did just do a little quick search so we can double check this, but it does not go into an investment account. It does go into a specific account that is only for these projects. Yeah.
You did say that you either vote yes, and that's for all of them, or no, and that's for all of them, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yes,
Yes, on each proposition. So it's essentially 14 different yes or no votes. Yeah. Yeah, and like each section, it's kind of like, well, this will only have one section, because that's not a great example. This Proposition 10 has so many different sections, each letter. So all of those letters, you're voting either yes or no on for all the projects or none of the projects.
So a good example was a few years ago, you guys remember the senior center was on the ballot, right? And so we had, I believe it was 14 propositions as well. 13 of the propositions passed. Only one failed. And the one that failed was the community rec center. So everything else, fire district, police, senior rec center, all passed. Yeah, you're okay.
Did, this gentleman back here, question get answered specifically, because as I understood what he asked was, how do they choose in that one proposition, all those things? How do they choose which one comes first? Do they do a little bit to each one, or do they prioritize the different ones, and how do they decide that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll say it can be the comments. I think we're kind of fact checking as we went. Looks like all the money has to be collected first, and then the projects can be funded. So my assumption would be they would all be funded at the same time, because, you know, if you have the money for all of them, you can move forward with all of them. But that is such an excellent question, and I can double check that with the county commissioners, try to see if they ever do start one or two before another, and why that would be, under which conditions. I think that's an excellent question. Yeah. Yeah, these are great questions. Yeah, this is Proposition 10, this is one of the public safety ones.
So just a quick answer. Again, this is AI, so let's double check. They give their sources. And it says, no, six-penny tax revenue does not need to be fully collected before a project begins. Funds are collected and distributed over time. Usually it takes 4 to 5 years. And municipalities often start or phase projects as the revenue comes in. So they'll begin once they have enough revenue to begin.
That's good to know. And that might also speak to how they're prioritized, right? If one municipality has enough to start one, but another doesn't have enough to start another.
Tough questions.
Yeah, these are excellent questions. They're so good. They're such good questions.
Well, honestly, the sixth penny, you have to go talk to the county commissioners, right? So that's where you would complain.
Well, perhaps that's a good segue into thinking about the next thing that you'll see on your ballot. So again, regardless of what type of ballot you get, Republican Party, Democratic Party, or nonpartisan ballot, there will be some county offices and municipal offices on the ballot for Laramie County then. So if we have any visitors from like Albany County or another place, I'm not sure, I can't speak to that county, but for Laramie County, on the Laramie County Clerk's website, they've created some handy PDF files for us to take a look at to see who's running for county commissioner
running for municipal seats such as Cheyenne City Council, Pine Bluffs Mayor, Pine Bluffs Town Council. So first we'll take a look here at this county offices. I'm gonna try to increase the text so we can get a better sense of it. Now, the assessor, the county clerk, the coroner, the treasurer, they are all elected positions in Laramie County. They serve a term that's 4 years in length, and they are not term limited. So sometimes you see the same person running, if they keep winning, they can hold on to the jobs. But of course, if they lose that seat, then they can't. Now, the county commissioners, there are quite a lot of commissioners on the ballot here. We have a lot of Republican Party candidates, but we also have some Democratic Party candidates as well. So depending on which party you vote for, you would see those different candidates. And the other thing I want to show you really fast, the municipal county elections, oh no, it's gonna make me go back. Okay. So some of the municipal county elections are nonpartisan elections. So for instance, if you are voting for Cheyenne City Council seats, or if you're voting for Pine Bluffs Mayor or Pine Bluffs Town Council, those are nonpartisan offices, and everyone would see those on your ballot, whether you're registered Republican, Democrat, or you have a nonpartisan ballot. So this gives us a sense of which people are running. Some of them are incumbents, and incumbent is just a fancy way of saying the person who currently holds that seat, right? And in politics or political science, sometimes we find that incumbents have an advantage because they've held that seat, they've been in the job, and people recognize their name, they kind of vote for them over and over. But of course, there are tons of examples of situations when someone who is a challenger upsets a race. So, especially in Wyoming, I would say there are some races, particularly at the local level, that are decided by a few hundred votes, and that's why it's, again, so great that you're all here and that you're all considering voting, because a lot of these races could be decided by a really small margin, particularly at the local level. So again, these are examples of the seats that are nonpartisan. You won't see them running under a particular political party. They are also 4-year terms. And in Cheyenne with the city council, it's kind of an interesting situation because not all of the seats are up for election at the same time. They're staggered. And I believe that is the same in Pine Bluffs. So you're not, like, for instance, if voters wanted just a clean sweep of the council at one time, they're not all on the ballot, not all the seats at the same time. So it's really more of a cycle. But these, again, can be found on the Laramie County Clerk's website. I think they have some good stuff. They also have a pretty cool tool on that website that will allow you to type in the address at which you vote, and it will show you an example of a sample ballot. So that's really cool. How awesome is that? You can go totally prepared. You'll see exactly what kind of ballot you would get, whether you're voting by mail or you're voting in person, however you decide to vote. So that's a great tool to check out as well. Some of the other races that might be of interest that we could talk about tonight are the races for the U.S. Senate seat, the races for the U.S. House seat, some of the races for the executive office.
When you go back to the partisan slide, there, I don't know if you know why some of them are in red, the names.
Oh, good question, good question. I think that was under this one. Let's see. Oh, no. Okay, we have some, you know what? I'm not sure, that's an excellent question though. Great observation. I'm wondering, and this is a bit of a guess here, so, maybe don't take my word 100%, but we see final here in red. I wonder if these were folks who were maybe kind of filed their paperwork within the deadline, but at the last minute, and they were compiling a final draft. That could be the case.
I believe they withdrew. Yeah. So Steve Wilson, I believe, just a few weeks ago withdrew because last Thursday evening, we had 8 of the county commissioner candidates in this room. And so I personally invited all of them, but not Mr. Wilson because he had withdrawn.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So,
Yeah, please.
And you said we could get a sample ballots if we went to what website?
Oh, to the Laramie County Clerk's website. If you'd like, we can take a look at that section, if anyone would have an interest.
Because I'm in the county, so I don't ever get to vote for city things, so I don't have to listen to that part.
Yes, I guess you're still stuck though with the 6 petty questions of the county commissioners.
that's the county commissioners I need.
Yeah, okay, good, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, alrighty, let's see. I'm gonna search sample ballot.
You can also pick one up at the county clerk's office. They will give you one.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So for the online people, you can pick them up at the county clerk's office as well.
So if anyone would like, I'm happy to leave this screen up for a little bit. It looks like what they're doing, in addition to picking it up in person, you could also email or reach out that way. It looks like another option they're offering this cycle is the QR code. So if anyone wants to use their phone to scan the QR code, I think what they'll probably do is prompt you to enter the address at which you vote, and then the sample ballot would come up. So it looks like we have this option, the email option, or the face-to-face option.
And Kenneth pointed out, library staff all know how to do this, and so they can help you as well. So if you need help anytime with things like this, go to one of our people out here, and they'll help you.
Right?
Yeah.
They're so knowledgeable.
Yes.
Any questions? Yeah, anything else that's coming up for people with the kind of, I guess, Laramie County or even municipal level? Any thoughts or concerns?
Do you want to see a ballot? Yeah? You can put in my address, I don't know. Yeah. I live in the city, so. Well, I don't know if it would, yeah. Let's see.
It was before that. Go back one. I thought it was. No? Sorry.
I think it's online as well. Anybody wants to come over to my house, feel free. No, that is not a character. Okay, so they've got the Republican, they've got the Democratic, and the unaffiliated. So let's just start at the top. There we go. Yep. So if you're a registered Republican, this is what you would see if you live in my neighborhood. So you have senator, state rep, county assessor, U.S. rep, then of course county commissioners, clerk of district court, and they tell you the cool thing on here is they tell you the term, 4-year, 4-year, 2-year, so that's helpful. precinct, I think this is the precinct captain as well, which is something people know less about, but it's also an important position. Often they go unfilled. Governor, kind of an important one. County coroner, and then municipal offices. Secretary of State, District Attorney, County Sheriff, State Auditor. Man, I got a lot of stuff to learn about. I don't know who to vote for. State Treasurer, County Clerk, County Treasurer, and State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Another very important one. Okay, you guys want to go back and see the Democratic ballot? This is what you can see, a little bit smaller, fewer names, right? As we know in Laramie County, but same offices. So county commissioner, you have 2 people, U.S. senator 2, U.S. rep 2, but some of these have 0. Municipal offices, Cheyenne City Council, Ward 2, you have 3. We have a candidate for governor, secretary of state, county sheriff, not for district attorney, not state auditor, so a lot of blank categories. And then for state superintendent of public instruction, we have 2. And state rep, House District 8. So that's my district. Yes. I'll come to you.
Thank you.
Of course.
If you keep scrolling down, you'll get to the 6 penny propositions.
Yes.
On those sample ballots.
Very good. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is what they'll look like on the actual ballot. Again, it's the same information, but it's presented differently, right? It's a little bit smaller font, it's a little bit smushed together. But again, these propositions and all of these propositions will be on everyone's ballot. The nonpartisan, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, any kind of ballot that you see will see these propositions.
So if you go back up, where does it say on those propositions? If you vote yes or no, it's at the bottom.
Yeah, right at the bottom.
You're voting for it or against it.
Oh, but each proposition.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's a great question though, because I think it is confusing. It can definitely be confusing. Yeah, you'll see this under each category. And because each one is a different size, different projects, it's kind of like you have to look for it in a different spot slightly, but it will be at the end. So that's a bit of a consistency.
And if you want, you can go back to that other tab, and we can take a look at the unaffiliated.
Okay, so this is what the nonpartisan ballot would look like. Again, the city council offices are nonpartisan, so if you vote in the city of Cheyenne, as Thomas does, if he lived in Pine Bluff, he had typed in the Pine Bluffs address, you would instead see some of the Pine Bluffs offices, the town council, the mayor. But again, we're gonna scroll down and we're gonna see all those same ballot propositions. These are all the 6 penny propositions. I know there's a lot on these ballots. A lot to consider in this race. How are we feeling?
I just wanted to make a comment about the monies collected for the propositions. In the paper, I think it was yesterday, there was a good article that was covering it, and I learned something new. They said that 40-some% comes from tourism.
Yes.
And another 18% comes from other projects. So we as taxpayers only have 40-some%.
Very, very good. Yeah, so we as taxpayers in Laramie County, we only pay 42% of the 6 penny taxes. So that is an important note, because tourists pay 40% as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great.
This is not particularly about the ballot itself. It's a question of how does my vote work? Because if there are two people, I like to say that many times I have voted for what I consider the lesser of two evils. But I was reminded that in that case, their other one is evil too. So my question is, if there are only two people really running for that position, and you don't like either one of them, what they stand for, is it better not to vote at all, or is it better to vote for somebody else that's not got much clout?
I think that is an excellent question. Man, I don't know what. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I don't know what I should say. That is, I mean, it's such a good question. It's so personal to each person, right? I mean, I think that dilemma that you mentioned going through seeing the lesser of the two evils, some people feel that's the better strategy for voting. Others want to leave it blank. I mean, I don't know if I want to sway any of you either way, but I would say you can always leave any of these blank. And whether it's candidates like the people or even the propositions. So that's something to consider too. If there are some that you have opinions about and you want to cast a vote for maybe 14 and 13, but you know one you're not, you don't care about, or you don't want to vote on, you just don't want to deal with it. You can always leave any of these blank, and it won't disqualify your ballot or anything like that. So I think that's something important to consider. It is an option. If you feel like none of these candidates or none of these projects are even kind of worth my time, worth considering, you can totally leave it blank. Yeah. But again, I don't know if I should influence any of you either way. It's so personal to each individual.
The machine will intimidate you and say, oh, you forgot to vote on P6. And it's just like, I'm not, yeah, just move on, boy. You know, yeah.
So for the online people, one of our viewers was reminding us that it will remind you that you didn't vote for something, but you can still go home. Yes. And I will comment, for those who actually attended some of our previous sessions, we presented this as an unbiased platform for information. And so I think that's why Lily is hesitating to give you an opinion, because we really want you guys to have a place to go for unbiased, nonpartisan information. And in that situation, I would agree with her. It is a personal decision, right? Like, they are going to know, I'll tell you this, they are going to know how many people vote for each one of these. So if they have fewer voters for a certain category or a certain office, that stands out a little bit. But our races are so close that every vote counts, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. It's kind of like the pro and con to consider, right? They really are close races, but at the same time, that would send a message. So, kind of either way. Yeah, great work. These are awesome questions. This is like such a deep thinking group. I love it. Yeah, so this is kind of what it will look like at the local level. If we want, there are also like some other races that we can look at, that we can consider. This primary is so packed. This often happens in Wyoming government and politics. The primaries have so many offices for us to consider, so many candidates. But this year, even more than some of the previous years, it feels just packed with candidates. The race on the Republican side for the U.S. House seat, there's like 9 candidates, and the Senate has 5. So there's a ton of people running for these seats. One of the sources of information that I was looking at when I compiled kind of the next 2 slides that we'll look at is the WyoFile election guide. So WyoFile, I tend to go to them because they are nonpartisan and nonprofits. So the nonpartisan just means they're not affiliated with a particular political party. The nonprofit aspect is that they're not trying to report the news in a profit-seeking venture. They're not really trying to make money off of that. So I tend to find that they have pretty good information. What they did is I'll show you all this before I dive in. They sent out the same questionnaire to all of the candidates seeking a particular office, regardless of their political party, Democratic Party, Republican Party, same exact set of questions. And they based those questions on what they heard from their readers. So their readers said, hey, we're concerned about these issues. And they were trying to look at public polling data in Wyoming, see like what are the issues people are really concerned about. And they put it all in this election guide, and they tried to organize it by the level of government. So, up here on the top, you can learn a little bit about them and about their method, but then in this kind of search bar here, you can look by type of office. So if you're interested in the Senate candidate, you can go through and read through the candidate's responses to all these questions. So some of the questions are kind of basic demographic information. Where do you live? Where are you from? What's your age? But then they get a little bit more into the weeds. What are your qualifications for this seat? What are the biggest challenges and opportunities facing Wyoming? They try to get into the political values. And, not all of the candidates who were sent the questionnaire responded. So we don't have every single person, but the majority of them did actually submit this. And I just think that's interesting to see how different candidates answer the same questions. It gives us a lot of insight into how they think and which people we feel like we're gravitating towards, we agree with that, and also which ones we're like, no, I don't agree with that one. So I would recommend this as something, especially if there is an office that you feel particularly strongly about, but you haven't made up your mind about which candidate to support. It's a great way to get a sense of the differences between them. Which policy ideas are they going to really value? Which ones are they maybe not as passionate about? And I use that information to try to do almost like a brief overview on everyone. What I did, the basic info we have on the side is the person's political party and any professional or career experiences that might be relevant to that office. And I approached this, I guess, as a little bit self-centered. I mean, I am human, right? This is the information I thought I would want about candidates when I'm thinking about voting for someone. I would want to know what kinds of experiences are they bringing to the table? How did they do in this position? And they share additional information again. So this information for some of you might not be relevant. You might be like, I don't care what their job is. I want to know what they think about this, or I want to know what they'll do about this. And that's fair too. The other thing about voting rights is that we all look for different things from candidates. We all want to know different information, and that's just completely natural for being human. But we have some information about their careers. I also have some notes that have more in-depth information. So if you have any questions about any of these people, just stop and I can see if I can find the answer for you. So the U.S. Senator would be replacing what is now the seat held by Cindy Lewis. In the Republican Party side, we have Carrie Hageman, who's currently the U.S. representative for Wyoming. She's running for the Senate seat. We have Jill Edwards, who is a massage therapist. She's a student at UW, and she lives over in Laramie. We have Jim Skogard, who's a veteran and a retired oil field service businessman. John Holtz, who is a former Wyoming judge and Air Force veteran. We also have Sam Mead, who is a rancher, small business owner, and former mayor of Kirby. One of the things he mentions in his interview is that he is the nephew of former Governor of Wyoming, Matt Mead. So, bit of a fun fact there. Then on the Democratic side, for this race, we have Billy Benavides, who is a salesman. We also have James Bird, who's a former member of the Wyoming State Legislature. He served in the House. He had leadership positions like Minority Whip and Minority Caucus to be one of two people who's representing Wyoming in Congress and the Senate. As some of you may know, but this was a good review, senators have quite a lot of power. They get to vote yes or no on presidential appointments to the president's cabinet. They have a role in any treaty making or diplomacy, international relations, stuff like that. If there's ever a question of impeaching a federal official, whether it be a Supreme Court judge or a president or anyone, the Senate plays a role in that process as well. The House does not. So the Senate is considered the upper house in Congress. They're a bit more powerful. These people serve for terms that are 6 years. So that it's not a constant election.
Does this place to tell if they are a Wyoming resident and have been since, well, before 2024?
Yes, that is a great question. So the question was, does the source of information that we're using for the online post, does that include how long they lived in Wyoming and if they were born here? And the answer is yes. I'm going to show you exactly how that looks in this format because I think it's useful. It's actually the first question they ask. So I feel like these journalists were definitely thinking in the same vein as you. So they'll tell you where they live currently, they'll tell you where they were born, they'll tell you how many years they've been in various places. And all the candidates are so different. You know, some will answer this very kind of literally like Laramie, 5 years, Cheyenne, like, so you kind of have to piece together and go back to the question. But then, I mean, this is an example of a candidate who's like used full sentences. She's kind of tried to give us a sense of what she's done in each place. So the way in which people answer that question, very different. But they at least did ask. So yeah, that's a great question.
And what organizations are backing them or they belong to?
That is an excellent question, and it's a perfect segue to one of my slides. Okay, this is a great group. All right, so we're skipping ahead a little bit. This slide will come a little bit later. But this is a pretty cool tool that anyone can use if you're interested. The Wyoming Secretary of State's website has a Wyoming Campaign Finance Information System. And this is going to sound intimidating, it's going to sound scary. Again, I would say if you want to look into this, but you're feeling like, oh, I don't know what this is, like this is too much. Again, ask the librarians, ask the library staff, they'll totally help you with this. Because it does feel a little bit intimidating. When I was using it, I was like, ooh, I might need a dictionary for this. But it is kind of cool because it will tell you which organizations and which people are supporting which candidates financially. And I think that gets to the heart of your question. Who's funding them? Or which PACs, which political action committees are funding them? So you can search by candidate. You can also search by race. So like, let's say you're interested in the governor's race. You can take a look at which people and organizations are funding all of the candidates. You can look at just one. They also do something that is kind of cool if you go to the search tab, where they will give you like, almost like fun facts from the data, like which candidate has spent the most or which candidate has spent the least. So they do try to, I think, as much as you can with campaign finance data, they try to make it engaging. Bit of a hard job with that. But you can search by different categories. So you can search contributions, search expenditures, you can search filed reports. So the other piece of running for office is that everyone is required to keep a record of which organizations and which people donate money to their campaign. And then there's a separate record for how they're spending that money. And they have to submit that information to the Wyoming Secretary of State's office, and in addition to that, to the federal government. So the other thing that you will see here is that, you know, most of the candidates have filed their paperwork and kept up with that. But if they haven't received paperwork from a candidate, that's what will pop up in this information system. It'll just say this person hasn't filed their paperwork, and that's information too. So yeah, that's definitely a tool that you can use. And again, like Thomas said about some of the other tools. You know, that's the library staff, because like, they're awesome and they can help, because it can be overwhelming looking at some of this stuff. But the information is useful, especially if you're interested in campaign finance.
Is there an easy, is there a easy way to find out their voting record?
That's a great question. Yes and no. So yes, if they have served in office before, no if they haven't. So some of our candidates have never served in office before. They have worked as business people or in the military, or they've just had other experiences. So we don't know their voting record. We have to guess. But that's a good question. For people who have served in office, there is a way to find out. So if you want to look at someone who has served at the federal level, like, for example, Harriet Hageman is running for the Senate seat, right? But we know she's already served in the House, in Congress. So we actually could look up her voting record for the House, and we could be like, do we think maybe she'll vote similarly in the Senate? I mean, probably, right? Like, most politicians are consistent, right? So we could look up her information on the U.S. House's website. U.S. House of Representatives, here it is. Okay, we're gonna search by candidate. Oh no, we're gonna search by representative. There we are. Let's do it by last name. Oh my gosh, there's so many people in this house, but that's okay. Oh no, oh big stress, oh my gosh. I know the alphabet's like in our papers tonight. But what I'll tell you while we're waiting for the page to load, we can also look up the records of people who have served in the Wyoming state legislature as well. Because what you'll see is that some of the candidates who are running either for the executive branch positions or they're running again for a Wyoming state House seat, a Wyoming state Senate seat, their voting records are also accessible on the Wyoming website. So we can take a look at that too. Oh no, we don't want to do that. Not right now. Alrighty. Oh, this is going to link me directly to her website. Okay, so we can see she's going to tell us straight out her latest votes. Okay, so what she's doing here is she's linking us directly to the PDF of the House resolution for the bill that she voted on. So right here under bill, if we wanted to read through the actual language of that bill, we could click on that link. It'll open in a new window. We can see like what that bill is all about. And they typically have, I would say, reading an entire bill is like, no one wants to do that unless you're like in a long line or really bored, right? Like, don't. But they typically have a summary. So you can always go for that too if it's an area you're interested in, but you don't want to read an entire bill. But you can see the exact primary source document of the bill and then how she voted on it. Yeah, so that's a great way to get information. Maybe what I'll pull up as well is the Wyoming legislature's website. So we can take a look at how to do that here too. So the state of Wyoming's legislature, their website is wyoleg.gov, and they will also have the voting records of people who have served. They also have information about the committees or subcommittees that their members have served on. So that might be information that's relevant too if you're like, hey, I think it's great that this person was on the appropriations committee. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe you're like, I think it's terrible that they were on the appropriations. Let's see citizen engagement. Okay, so down here we can either click on senators or representatives. You can also find your legislator using kind of a similar tool if you type in your address, if you're curious to see. But if you're like, hey, there's a specific person I'd like to look up, you can always look at the person. It's alphabetical. So that's a great way to learn more about their voting record, to learn more about the committees they've been on. Great, these are great questions.
Our legislature in the state, by the way, does a great job of recording all sessions, all committees, all voting sessions, and that is all available on their website. So if you ever actually want to see how the process works, you want to see what that person has done, it is available.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, yes. Yeah, you can always go back through in the committee meetings too. So if there's a particular policy area you're like more interested in, more passionate about, you can often find those in the committee meetings. And they have those videos archived, going back years on YouTube. So that's one source of info. I feel like this is such a big deal. Okay, so these are some of the folks who are running for the office of U.S. Senator on the Republican and Democratic sides. Now, as you can see, I'm breaking all the rules of doing a slideshow presentation. You're never supposed to have this many words on one slide. I'm so sorry, but there are 9 different people running to be the Republican Party's representative for the U.S. House. So this is a really packed race. Bo Biden is the current Wyoming legislator who's president of the Wyoming Senate since 2025. So he is someone who you could find his voting record on wyoming.gov if you were curious. The U.S. representative, though, this would be representing Wyoming in Congress, in the House of Representatives. And, whereas every state in the union gets 2 senators, representatives are apportioned based on population. And since Wyoming is a state with a smaller population, there is one representative representing the entire state. So states with larger populations sometimes will have, 10 people representing their states broken out into different districts. But here, the entire state is one district. It's called an at-large district. So it means whoever's doing this job, they'll be representing everyone in Congress. Big job, big deal. Chuck Gray, who is the current Wyoming Secretary of State, he's also vying for this position. David Giroux, who was an Army veteran, a former legislative advisor to U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis, this race as well. Jillian Allo, she was the former state superintendent of public instruction. Keith B. Goodenough, former Wyoming state legislator and former Casper City Councilor, he's running. Kevin Christensen, an Army veteran, worked for Lockheed Martin and the Bureau of Land Management's High Plains District in Casper. Reed Rasner, who is a wealth manager. Richard Dodson has worked in the Army National Guard. He's also been an actor, a singer, an IT professional. And then Steve Freese, he's a businessman and philanthropist. So this is definitely a packed race. If you vote with the Republican Party, you'll have to choose from all of these people which one you want to be your Republican representative on the ballot. So it's a packed race. One of the things that I think has been useful about this race, Wyoming and Wyoming Public Media and some of the local newspapers across the state, they got together to have I don't know if we should even call it a debate. It was more like a discussion with all of these candidates at the same time and asking them the same questions to see which policy issues, how they feel about specific policy issues. That is available on the Wyoming Public Media website, also on YouTube. It's lengthy, but again, if you're having trouble deciding between all these 9 people, watching that or at least watching some of it is a way to sense the differences between them to maybe distinguish who you would want to vote for. And then on the Democratic side, there are a couple of people in the race as well. We have Elena Del Real. She was one of the candidates for whom it was difficult to find information online. I was able to find that she filed her paperwork from Lander. So every candidate who files paperwork to run for office in the state of Wyoming, they have to do that with the Wyoming Secretary of State. So even with the candidates who don't have a campaign website, they didn't respond to any interviews, even with them, I can at least tell you from where they filed their paperwork. That's one piece of info. We also have Lisa Kinney. She's a former member of the Wyoming Senate. She was the minority leader for 2 years. And If you're on if you're in the Democratic Party, you'll be choosing between these two candidates who would then represent your party on the ballot in November. So for the governor's race, for the Republican Party side of things, there are 4 different candidates to choose from. We have Brett Yan, retired United States Marine Corps Colonel, state elector for the Electoral College for the 2024 presidential election. We also have Kurt Blake, who is a rodeo production professional. He had kind of an interesting campaign strategy. He only did one interview the whole campaign, and that was like intentional. When he did the interview, he said, "I'm actually not trying to campaign." So that was kind of interesting. Eric Barlow is the currently serving in the Wyoming State Legislature in the Senate. Before that, he served in the Wyoming House as the Majority Leader. He's a rancher. He's a large animal veterinarian. And then Megan Degenfender, she is the current State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and she's vying for governor now as well. So these are the 4 options for the Republican Party. On the Democratic side, there is one option. Ken Kastner is an Army National Guard veteran and a small business owner. Now, the Secretary of State, this is a really important position in Wyoming. The executive offices, there's 5 of them, and they're all elected independently by all of you. But there isn't, a lot of states will do like governor, lieutenant governor, kind of like president, vice president. That's not really done here in Wyoming. But if anything ever happened to the governor and they could not perform the duties of their job, it would be the Secretary of State who would jump in. They're also responsible for managing elections across the state, for registered businesses and nonprofits and keeping records about that. So this is a really big job as well. We have C.J. Dunn on the Republican side, former state elections director, Department of Corrections. He worked for Department of Corrections. He was a military and veterans liaison for the Wyoming Congressional District, a U.S. Navy Reserve officer, a small business owner. Then the second candidate on the Republican Party side is Quentin Eagle Oviatt. He's an academic advisor at Central Wyoming College. He works in businesses and science research. Rachel Williams is also running. She is a Wyoming House Representative, and she's currently the chair of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. Then last but not least, we have Robert Short, who's a county commissioner in Commerce, a businessman, and a former nuclear scientist. So these will be the options for people who vote with the Republican Party for Secretary of State. And then there's one option for people who are going to vote with the Democratic Party. Brian McCarty, he's had a private sector career, mostly in the railroad industry. Now, the state auditor is a really big job, but this year there's only one candidate in total. So Christy Christine is the current state auditor. She's a CPA, and there are no Democrats and there are no other Republicans running for that race. So, good chance she'll win. I hope that's not a wild prediction or something. Probably will see her on ballot in November, right? Yeah. Then we've got the state treasurer. This is a really important job. The current state treasurer is Kurt Meyer. He's running for re-election, but this seat is being challenged by Scott Smith, who's currently a member of the Wyoming House. Something that was kind of interesting in a recent interview, Kurt Meyer was trying to describe the difference between what the treasurer does and what the auditor does. I thought he said it very simply. He said, the treasurer's job is to make the money for the state of Wyoming. The auditor's job is to write the checks. So if you're ever confused, when you're in this process of trying to figure out who to vote for, that will be helpful. So the treasurer is responsible for investing money with the goal of getting good returns on those investments for the state of Wyoming, for all of us. And they also sit on the state loan and investment board, all the executive officers do. And then the auditor is really more like analogous to a human resources professional. They're making sure payroll is being met, that all of the state's fiduciary responsibilities to people, to contractors, to other entities are being honored. So those are all of these are really big jobs. Now, the superintendent of public instruction is the last of the executive offices of the 5. This is a really big job as well. The person is responsible for supporting schools and teachers and superintendents in the K-12 system across the state. They're not supposed to set curriculum, and there are some things that they're not supposed to do that the Department of Education of Wyoming does. So they're not like, they don't have sweeping powers for education. There are some things they can do, some things they can't do, but they're still very influential in the direction of public education in the state of Wyoming. I think that's fair to say. There are 3 options on the Republican side. Chad Auer is a former teacher, principal, district administrator, and former mayor of Firestone, Colorado. Steve Harshman is a current member of the Wyoming House. He was formerly Speaker of the House, leadership position there. Then we have Tom Kelly, who's currently a member of the Wyoming House and former teacher. On the Democratic side, we also have 2 candidates. Anna Cordova had a career in education focused on nonprofits and education research. And then Sergio A. Maldonado Sr. was a teacher, former tribal education director for the Northern Arapaho Nation. He served on the National Advisory Council on Indian Education. He was appointed by former President Bush. Now, this slide contains the link to that site that I showed you all before about the campaign finance reports. So if that's of interest to anyone, take a look. Again, don't hesitate to ask the library staff for support if that's a topic you're interested in. The other thing I wanted to point out with this BioFile election guide is that they will let you search by district, and then it'll just pull up all the candidates who are running in your district for the Wyoming State Legislature. So the Wyoming State Legislature, similar to Congress, it's bicameral. There's 2 houses, the Wyoming House, the Wyoming Senate, and every different part of the county is in a different district. So if you're not sure which district you're in, that is totally fine. You can use the map on the left-hand side of the screen to figure that out. I put here a slide about all of the House District and Senate District candidates in Laramie County, but there are some interesting races happening in other parts of the state, and if you want to check those out, you really just have to search by district, and they'll show you the candidates. They'll show you, in this case, there's no Democrats, but if there were, they would show all of the different options. You can click on the person and learn more about them.
Batteries.
Batteries, oh no.
Not plugged in.
Oh, what did I do?
No, it's not you. It's not plugged in.
Someone should do that.
Yeah, so that could be a useful tool, to figure out who's running in your district. And again, not all the candidates responded to the interview queries. So in that case, you have to kind of do a bit of digging online, maybe if you know anyone who knows them. I mean, that's the benefit of being in Wyoming, is sometimes people, you might have a neighbor who's running problems, right? You never know. So you can always ask around, but it does make it easy when people will respond to interviews and they'll participate in the candidate forums, because it gives us a better sense of who they are, what they're learning, and what they might do. Hey, it looks like it's working. Yay! That's awesome. Okay. All right. So there are 3 Senate districts that are up for election in Laramie County. The first that we'll take a look at is Senate District 6. The Republican Party candidates for this seat. I don't know. Should we say it? No, okay. I could have taken an audience poll on that. So we have Roy Birch, who's retired United Parcel Services employee. We have Tad Love. He was appointed to hold this seat. So he's currently serving in the Senate District 6 seat. He was appointed after Darren Smith left to become the U.S. District Attorney for Wyoming. He was an appointment by the current president. So once that seat was vacant, they had to appoint someone. The county commissioners, the Republican Party, they all had to figure that out. So they chose Taft Love, but now it's up to the voters, right? If you want to keep it, or if you want Roy Burt to represent the Republican Party on that side. Now, the Democratic Party does not have any candidates running in this race. So if you have a Democratic Party ballot, you won't see SD6, even if you're voting in that district and living in that district. But you will see that in the general election now in November. So Senate District 7 has a few options. For the Republican Party, we see Mark Winning running. He's a dentist and he's served as a Cheyenne City Councilor for many years. Then on the Democratic Party side, we have Jim Lee running. It was difficult for me to find information about him online. No campaign website, didn't do a lot of interviews, but we do know from his paperwork that he filed from Cheyenne. Then last but not least is Senate District 31. The Republican Party ballot will see a race between Evie Brennan, who's the incumbent, and Daniel Singh, who currently represents House District 61. He's vying for that seat. Then on the Democratic Party side, there's one candidate, Shifa Ahmed, who is a recent UW College of Law graduate. Just graduated. Now we'll take a turn to the House districts. Again, these are just the ones in Laramie County. Fun fact, this year, all of the House districts in the Wyoming State Legislature will be on the ballot. So no matter what part of the state you live in, you'll see your House district on the ballot. But we just restricted it to Laramie County. So here in House District 4, for the Republican Party, it is the incumbent Jeremy Geraldson who is running for the Republican Party. There are no Democratic Party candidates who are running for this seat. For House District 7, there are a couple of different options for the Republican Party. We have Bob Nicholas, who's the incumbent. He's running against Deb Mutter-Shamley, who worked in public service and labor relations. Then on the Democratic Party side, there's one candidate, Gavin Waldmeyer, who was a paralegal and he also worked in cybersecurity. Then for House District 8, for the Republican Party side, we have Steve Johnson, who's the incumbent, versus Luke Reiner, who was in the Wyoming Air and Army Guard, and he was also a former director of WYDAP, the Department of Transportation. Then on the Democratic Party side, there is one candidate, Brenda Little. She was an attorney. She worked for Wyoming Department of Family Services, and she was formerly an LCCC Board of Trustees. So that would be actually another example of a situation in which we can find someone's voting record. So the Laramie County Community College Board of Trustees, they also archive their meetings and their voting records on their website. So that's an elected position too. We could get some info about how that person voted, what they thought, how they approached that. Then for House District 9 on the Republican Party side, we have X.C.R. Brown Jr., who's a veteran, a small business owner, versus Boyd O'Wiggum, who is an attorney. Then the Democratic Party side has Stephen Latham, who's a veteran, a pastor, and a community organizer. Then for House District 10, for the Republican Party, we have one option, Justin Fornstrom. He was appointed to the seat. The person who held the seat passed away, and so he was appointed to fill the seat. Before that, he was a mayor of Love seat. He was a small business owner. And now, again, it's even when people are appointed, the voters do have a say, so this is the chance. There are no Democratic Party candidates running in House District 10. In House District 11, for the Republican Party, there are a couple of options. Dan McIntosh, who is the director of the Wyoming Center for Business and Economic Analysis at LCCC, and an Air Force Reserve person. He's running against Paul Wayne, who's an Air Force veteran. Then on the Democratic Party side, we have Brittany Tennant. She's the CEO of the Cheyenne Animal Shelter and the founder of Black Dog Rescue. So, both parties have some candidates there. Now for House District 12, we have one candidate. On the Republican side, we have Clarence Steigar, he's the incumbent, and there are no Democratic Party candidates running for House District 12 versus Aaron Edwards, who is a firefighter. Then on the Democratic Party side, we have Dr. Stacy Beckman, who has served on the Wyoming State Advisory Council on Juvenile Justice. She's worked in corrections, law enforcement, and the juvenile justice system. Then for House District 42, for the Republican Party, it's Rob Geringer, who's the incumbent, and for the Democratic Party, Jim Van Dyke, who's worked in technology, construction, and management. And for House District 43, I know, it says they're multiplying. Just kidding, we're so close. For House District 43, on the Republican side, we have Ann Lucas, who's the incumbent, versus Jessica Crowder, who's the former executive director of the Wyoming Stockbrokers Land Trust, and she was a policy advisor to former Governor Jack Lee, and she's a rancher with a ranch in Laramie County. And the Democratic Party is not running any candidates for House District 43. For House District 44, Lee Filer is running as the incumbent and has no Democratic Party candidates for election. For House District 61, on the Republican Party side, we have Seth Bard, who's a Wyoming Air National Guard member, versus Andrew Server, who's a teacher and a former legislative aide to the Colorado State Legislature. Then on the Democratic Party side, we have Kristen Aaron Balduraz. Difficult to find information about her online, but she did file her paperwork from China. So, those are all the candidates running in their how do you feel? Questions, thoughts?
Yeah, it's cool.
A lot of information, right? A lot of information. So we still have a little bit of homework to do before the 18th. We're running out of time, right? So if you don't mind, please thank Lily for me, because this was a big Lily. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I do have a question, I'm kind of confused back on page 1. The closed primary system. People who have voted previously in Wyoming needed to register with the party by May 13, 2026 to vote in that party's primary. But I voted in all the other elections. Did I need to register? The wording seems a little disjointed.
Yes, I'm so sorry, well, that's on me, it's confusing wording. If you wanted to have changed your party, you would have had to have done it by May 13th. But if you've already been voting with the same political party and you're like, you know what, I'm good with that one, I've been voting with that one for years, you didn't have to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's on me, I worded it in a confusing way. If anyone wanted to change your party affiliation and you were previously voting, it's too late. However, if you never voted or you were struck from the rolls in 2024, you still got a chance. But yeah, if you wanted to change, it's thank you, that's such a good question. Yeah.
That was a relatively new development. That just was implemented 2 years ago, prior to the 2024 election. Yeah. So a lot of people found out this year that they were not registered to vote because they cleared the rolls for anybody who did not vote in the last general. Yeah. So if you did not vote in the last general, they took you off. So, yeah. But that means you had up until election day, right? Because if you're not registered to vote, you can wait until election day. And in Wyoming, you can register the day of.
And one of our audience members, I remember, said it never hurts to check. I think that's a great point to make. If you're unsure at all, you can reach out to your county clerk, Laramie County Clerk's office. Go in person, call, email. They will tell you if you were struck from the rolls or if you're still on the books. I mean, they'll confirm it with you. So, yeah, never hurts. That's a great point.
Any other questions for Lily? Excuse me. No? Well, again, Lily did an amazing job with this. This was our 4th session like this. And we were just talking, we might do another one before the general. Okay, so keep an eye out. The general's very different in Wyoming, we all know that, but there are some still very important propositions on that ballot in November. So we might do something in October, okay? So please keep an eye out for that as well.
So it'll be different than the propositions.
Yes, yeah, so,
But something like that.
yeah, we have a 50% property tax cut that will be on the November ballot. And we have the 5th penny. So this one is 6th penny. The 5th penny will be in November. So we were thinking it might be a good idea to explain all of that. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you guys so much. Please go vote. Yeah.